These lights make you look better, right? Or do they add 10 pounds? The camera adds?
The cameras add 10 pounds.
So each? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they add 60 pounds?
Yeah. From the small camera over here, where I can see an image, I can see that your head is really fat.
I also look really pale. Can you make this, is this tanning me?
So those are tanning bulbs.
Those are tanning bulbs.
Yeah, I knew you were coming. Good. And I knew that you would be, I knew that you'd want to be more tan.
Remember the Arnold when the Lillibridges were around and they told Andy that you're using melanotan?
Oh yeah, and she was like,
what the hell is that? So there's this injectable stuff.
My wife never knows what's going on.
No idea. But
injectable tanning.
It's injectable tan. But you looked like you'd been in Puerto Rico for like 2 months.
She never knows what's going on.
And the Lillibridges are just kind of that color anyways.
Yeah. Because they're in tanning beds all day long.
In tanning beds all the time. So they're like, wait a second, like, are you tanning now? And then they're like, oh no, melanotan. And they were talking about it. And then they told Andy, we're like, wow, that's amazing. And she's like, what? So tan. And she's like, what are you even talking about? You're tanning?
People ask her all the time, like, do you like Mark when he's like lean like this or when he's bigger? She's like, I don't even notice. I don't know if she just doesn't look at me or.
She probably tries not to.
It's like, I used to weigh 100 pounds more. Like, what?
Like, how did
there's gotta be something that you're noticing.
What do you mean? He lost weight?
Is something different?
Yeah.
Is it? I thought it was just hair. I thought he was doing his hair differently. No, not so much. 100 pounds. No kidding.
I can't get her attention no matter what I do. So we got my man Jesse Burdick here. He comes traveling down from CSA, Combat Sports Academy, which is owned by our good buddy Kieran Fitzgibbons. And we got this other guy over here that you lugged along with you today.
I did. I dragged him out.
Who is a well-established kickboxer, Muay Thai fighter, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 fights or so.
Pretty close, yeah.
Multiple-time world champion in Muay Thai and kickboxing, multiple sports. They seem like they're similar because people are trying to kill each other, but they're quite different. Rules are quite different.
Very different, yeah.
Fucking A, man.
His name is Kevin Ross as well. Let's make sure we got that on camera. Are we rolling yet?
No, that was the graphic was going to come in.
Oh, it's just it was a
no, there's like music.
All right, let's just start over.
And there's like a 3, 2, and 1, go.
Go. Oh, wait. Hi, I'm Mark
here today
Bell.
with Kevin Ross, ladies and gentlemen. Any relation to the painter? The guy that would, what is that guy's name?
Bob Ross.
Bob Ross.
No,
but
not
you do.
that I know of.
But you do paint.
A little bit. Not like that, though.
Not happy trees, mean trees, angry trees,
emotionally damaged trees, childhood trauma trees. Good.
Well, Bob Ross seemed like he was, he seemed like he was a little bit nutty.
He was. Yes.
Seemed like he had a sensitive side to him.
Definitely touched one way or the other. Somewhere along the way. So there's it's become really popular. UFC has taken off quite a bit. MMA has become popular. Why do you think something like Muay Thai fighting or even boxing, like boxing's kind of fallen to the wayside a little bit? Why do you think Muay Thai fighting hasn't gotten maybe as much media as something like UFC?
Well, when you look at MMA and UFC, you got to realize how long they were around before they blew up.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a really long time. I mean, UFC was basically bankrupt when, they finally blew up and they had the reality show and
they
everything.
Went through a lot.
So it's really just a matter of the right thing at the right time. And there's so many pieces that need to come together in that right moment in order for that to happen. It just, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. I always ask the same question, and everybody that sees the sport and loves the sport, and they're like, why isn't this bigger? And there's really no answer to it other than just those right pieces haven't come into play.
Just a lot of exposure, huh? Yeah, with UFC, you end up with a lot of grappling, and sometimes over the years, I mean, it goes through stages where there's like grapplers like Dan the Beast Severin, and there's some grapplers that have kind of dominated the sport, and then the sport ends up on the ground, and there's high levels of jiu-jitsu and things of that nature. And now the sport kind of seems like it's a little bit more stand-up going on, but in Muay Thai fighting, what are some of the rules?
So Muay Thai's all stand up. I mean, we do have sweeps and stuff, so there's that aspect of the takedowns, but we don't follow it down to the ground. So Muay Thai is very similar to kickboxing, and it's one of those things you kind of have to tell people it's like kickboxing, but for a Muay Thai fighter, that's kind of like a dig at your heart to say that to people, because it is a completely different sport and a different aspect. Muay Thai has clinching and elbows, and the rules are different. And if you have fought both, you really do know how different they are once you're in there. But from the outside observer, it just looks like just kickboxing, just different.
What do you think is the main thing that separates you out from some of these other guys? Because you are a multiple-time world champion. And when I've seen like a lot of highlights, I've been following you for years, ever since Jesse told me that he's been training you in some powerlifting and stuff. I've been following along, and I've just noticed that almost everything I see from you, there is a vicious like leg sweep in there on almost everything that I see. So is that... Is that kind of a go-to thing that you end up?
It's one of those things I guess I kind of got known for. Unfortunately, now in kickboxing, we're not allowed to do that. And so it's like one of my main things got taken away from me, as well as elbows.
How
and things
fucking
like
hard
that.
is that? That's got to be tough.
It's really tough. And that's why you don't really see a lot of people transition between both sports, because they are so different. I just stylistically was able to make that transition because I did have a good boxing base and was more combination centric and things like that, where a lot of prototypical Thai fighters are very just single hard shots and standing in front of each other. And that's like the typical, when you think of Muay Thai thing. But kickboxing is a lot more numbers, a lot more movement, things like that. So I was just able to make that transition. It's still difficult for me, and I really have to pay attention to what I can.
You have
and can't
to like
do.
almost be thinking about it.
After 2 years of being signed with Bellator and doing kickboxing, I still have to think about it. And when you're in there thinking about what you can and can't do, it slows you down.
Yeah.
And so it's still tough for me to this day not to want to do those things.
Have you ever broke? Have you ever swept someone or tried to attack a certain way? Did you end up stopping yourself? Did you end up? I guess it's not really screwing. No, nothing was successful, at least.
No, I mean there's definitely times in there when it crosses my mind. I really wish I could elbow you right now. You know, and I've done.
Do you tell your opponent that too? It's like, I was going to elbow you right there, but I can't. You would have been really fucked up.
I did a few boxing fights in the past just to stay busy, and I did have those guys tell me like, don't kick me and don't do this. that was a lot more difficult to have so many things taken away from me. You know, where kickboxing and Muay Thai are at least relatively close. Boxing, that was really tough for me not to do things, particularly because I took them on like a week's notice. Like all 4 of my boxing fights were on super short notice like that, so I didn't really even have any boxing training. I just don't kick or knee them and punch them. So that was really tough for me to do. But you know, doing that and doing other sports has really helped me to kind of develop and be able to turn on and off the different weapons and styles that I can do.
When I hear some of the story, you know, I've heard that at around 14, you saw some Muay Thai fighting and you got hyped up about it and wanted to figure out how to get involved in it. And then it's like years later, I think you didn't start doing it right away, right?
No, I didn't start till I was almost 23. It's almost 10 years.
That's like 13 years later than the normal kind of Thai fighters.
Yeah, most fighters, Thai fighters or kickboxers, anybody, I mean, around mid-20s, they're retiring.
Right.
You know, and I didn't even step foot
and they're retiring with like 100 fights or so.
Fights. Yeah, for sure. So I was very late in the game, and that was one thing that really kept me from going after it for so long, is that I felt like I was too old at that point, you know, and here I am 15 years later still doing it. So
did somebody kind of tell you in the beginning, like, hey, it doesn't work that way, dude? Like, you're like, oh no, I want to, you know, work hard. I want to do this. And they just kind of say, hey,
I think it was just like something I knew that, like, you know, you want to do something at athletically at a high level. You usually got to start when you're really young,
right?
You know, so no, there wasn't really anybody telling me you can't do this. It surprised everyone that was something I do. I mean, back then all I really did was drink and party every single day. I was a full-blown alcoholic by the time I was 18, you know, and was just wasting my life in Vegas doing that, drinking myself to death. And
how'd that get started?
Very young. I probably started drinking when I was like 12 years old. And then, you know, growing up in Vegas, it's just you know, when you have those tendencies, it's
Yeah.
really bad place to be. It's like a kid in a candy store, just on the really bad level of that. So
Well, it doesn't matter where you are. You can end up all the way in Pennsylvania and be smoking pot behind the dugout, right?
Absolutely.
At 14, like this guy.
Yep.
yeah.
That's the story he shared with us just a couple of, it's like unavoidable, you know, there's drugs
You
and
can
alcohol.
find it anywhere. If you're inclined, it's the buffet line is everywhere.
But you know, being in Vegas, it's just in your face all the time.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's that much worse. And when you do have those kind of issues, it's impossible to stay away from it. You know, it's just in your face 24 hours a day. And it's a really hard place. I wouldn't want anyone to grow up there.
Was it something that just kind of like took over your life, or was it something that you had pain going into and you were kind of like self-medicating even at a young age?
Both. I was definitely self-medicating at a young age, and it clearly took over my life. I had literally had to drink every day, or else I physically couldn't function. I would shake, and you know, I was, like I said, when I was like 18 years old, I was having to drink daily in order to function. So yeah, I for me to turn my life around and do what I did, it really just, no one knew what I was doing. I didn't even know what I was doing, you know, and that was another thing that took me so long to get started, is like, I don't even know if I can take myself seriously. Like, this is what I want to do. It's crazy, you know, and I didn't feel like I could tell anybody about it. Like, they'd be like, no, what are you thinking? You think you can just go do this? Like what are we going to do? And, you know, I think that's why
kind of simultaneously you were starting to explore Muay Thai fighting.
Yeah. I mean, I really, it was one of those things. I just had to go all in. And I knew that I was going to have to turn my life around and give up drinking and all that, and just dive into the sport if I wanted to do it. Because I've just always been that type of person that has to do it all the way or nothing at all. And that went with drinking and drugs too, you know? So, that was another thing that kept me from doing it for so long, is I wasn't ready to give that up. You know, I didn't want to stop partying. I didn't want to stop hanging out with my friends. It's like, as soon as I do this, I'm just going to be by myself. And not only that, I don't even know if I can do this. So it was such a tough thing for me to really make that decision to go after it, because I felt like I was risking so much and for no reward.
So a lot of addicts talk about, you know, when they can make a change, do make a change, hitting some sort of like a bottom, or having some sort of a revelation, or some sort of something. Like, was there one for you? And I mean, is that when the switch to Muay Thai, when you finally made the decision, like, you know what, fuck this, I'm done, I'm gonna go over here and do this? Was there one thing, you know, something that happened to a friend or anything, or was it just an accumulation and you just got fed up with it and kind of moved on?
Several things actually. The one person only person I ever told about this dream of wanting to be a fighter was one of my best friends, Mo, and he actually passed away when I was 17, I think. He was actually born with a heart condition, and so it wasn't like drugs and things like that. But that was actually the thing that really made me realize, you need to go after this dream. He didn't even get to live. He was 17 years old, and you're over here pissing your life away, drinking and doing drugs every day. And you know, when he died, like I said, I was 17. That really like sent me down that dark road even further. But every time I would see a fight or things like that, it would like pop back up. And I knew I wasn't ready to go after it, so I would just like go even deeper into this road of drinking and stuff to like try to bury it. And I was trying to like kill it. I didn't want it around, because I wasn't willing to go after this and really deal with all my fears and hesitation. So it caused me to just go in the other direction that much more, because I really wanted to kill that part of me and just ignore it, but I just couldn't. It just constantly would come up. And then after a series of friends dying, almost killing people, going to jail, myself, I got pulled over.
Were you violent at the time?
I was never violent. I think that was another thing that's like really would surprise people, is I wasn't a violent person. I mean, I'd get into like bad altercations and stuff, but never for my own self, just being this person looking for fights and stuff, you know. And as I said, like, I had a couple friends going to jail. One of my friends almost killed somebody drunk driving. I got pulled over drunk driving, doing over 100 on the highway, and for whatever reason got let go. That was a huge wake up call for me. And then just after a series of things, like all that happened within this month span of time, and one day I'm sitting there drinking and realizing like if my friend was still alive, he'd kill me. You know, he was the one that told me like, why don't you do this? I don't understand why you don't do this. You know, and I just had that realization one day and woke up and was like, I can't deal with this anymore. Even if I can't make it to where I can make it to, which I didn't even know what that was. I was like, you have to at least try, and you have to go after this with everything you have. At least, you know, you went for it and got in the gym, and that was 15 years ago. And this is where I ended up. And this is crazy to me, you know, like every day is very surreal to me because I still have that same, like, I still feel like I'm back there. Like, I don't feel like there's 15 years of that behind me. I feel like that was yesterday.
Right.
You know, so it's like, I think anyone with addiction knows that no matter how far away from the last time you did it was, it's right there.
Still feel very vulnerable in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah. Like it could be 30 years of not drinking. And I know that one bad day and I'm back right where I was.
I think that's what keeps people driven, though. You know, you think about like, you know, hearing great quotes from people like Tom Brady and stuff, and they'll say, what drives you and what makes you go into training camp so hard? He's like, I'm just fighting for my job. And you're like, that's fucking Tom Brady. Why is he fighting? He's fighting for his job. Like he just earns a job because he's, you know, because he's Tom Brady, but he doesn't view it that way. You know, he's not viewing it as, I think a lot of people, you know, have the same perspective. You think you kind of had to go through all that to have the fighting mentality that you have today?
For me, I do. Yeah. So much of it when I started was, I know how far behind I am from where I should have started and where everyone else is. So I've always felt like I'm playing catch up. I've always felt like I'm decades behind everyone else. And that is what has constantly kept me driven, constantly kept me in the gym, constantly kept me fighting people I shouldn't be fighting or really pushing the envelope, you know, because it's like, one, I feel like I'm so far behind. And then the second part of it was, I don't feel like I should be here anyway. So like I'm really just like living every day like it's extra credit, you know, and I got to make the most out of what I have because so many times I should have been dead and should have died when I was 20 years old, you know. And so both of those things have just constantly kept me so driven and focused on this thing that I know I can never be where I should be. I can never be good enough in a sense. So no matter what I do, no matter how hard I push it, I can't get there. So I have to go as hard as I can, as much as I can, and just give it everything I have every day and every time I get in there.
Did you have any sort of stability? Like, is there a parent or an uncle or a grandma or grandpa or somebody who was around to kind of keep you afloat at least a little bit?
Yeah, in the beginning,
mentor.
My father really he kind of made the deal with me because you know, I knew that if I was going to do this, I wanted to train with the best trainer I could train with, the one-on-one training. I didn't want to be in classes. I'm like, as I said, I knew how far behind I was. So I was like, I need to get the best I can get. It's like, I can't afford this. Like, I don't have a job. I mean, money, you know, and he actually made a deal with me. He's like, if you quit drinking, I'll take care of everything you have to pay for it. And I was drinking a 40 at the time. He's like,
as soon as I pound this.
Well, that's what I thought. I was like, all right, you know, come Monday, you know, after this weekend, you know, we're gonna do it. But he was like, well, you're drinking right now. And you know, in my mind, I was like, well, you know, after today. Right. And he's like, no. And he's like, all right. And I walked over to the sink and poured it out. And yeah, like I said, the next day or 2 days later, I was in the gym. And yeah, he really helped me out in that aspect of it, the financial aspect of it. But as far as other support, my girlfriend Gina at the time, you know, she was very supportive of me, just seeing me turn my life around, which also inspired her. She came afterwards and started training more just for something to do to get in shape and stuff. And she's just amazing and tremendous athlete and took to it. And like
Gina Carano in movies and shit like that. Yeah.
Which is, you know, I'm like, you don't understand how hard I have to try to do this and how much I kill myself. I'm like in the gym all the time. Yeah. And like, she's so naturally gifted and it just like, it kills me to see like, she like really doesn't, not that she doesn't try to work hard, but how easily it came to her. I'm like, oh, man, I wish I could do it. Like, I literally can't even take a few days off without feeling like I took like 2 years of back step, you know? So her being there was extremely helpful and supportive to me. And then, you know, my friends, they weren't unsupportive. I mean, they really just thought it was like a fad and like, all right, he's going to be back in the bar with us in a few weeks. But I think after time, they really saw and realized how dedicated I was to this. And they were really into it and thought it was really cool. I mean, they hated the fact that I couldn't party with them and stuff anymore. But yeah, they were always very supportive after that.
And where did you start? Who was your first coach?
I started in Las Vegas. I started at Master Toddy's gym, but I was actually training with...
Can you explain Master Toddy a little bit for everyone who doesn't quite understand, doesn't know exactly?
I don't know if
Maybe we can pull up a graphic for that. For
He's
Master Anybody's a great name.
Yeah. He is a character. He's similar to Don King in a lot of ways. and that's
in the
hairstyle, just attitude, very just he's like a caricature of a person, you know, and the most amazing coach I've ever worked with, but he also has that kind of shady side of him too. So it's very easy for people to look at him like he's a joke.
So he's a shady side, like everybody, like in boxing or MMA, a little sketch, you know.
But he did really have both sides of it because he was such an amazing trainer and really just a genius when it came to teaching people. But
is that him? Graphic.
Yeah. But actually, well, he had 3 other trainers under him. Master Chan, that's who I started with, and then there was 2 others, and so I did one-on-ones for like the first year. All I did was one-on-one training, and then on
our way up, we were talking about kind of classes, like for Muay Thai classes, opposed to kind of one-on-ones, and you're also talking about how, you know, how those are different, how those are taught, and how the skills are kind of developed. Yeah. So with the one-on-ones, what did you start with opposed to what you would have started with in a class setting?
I pretty much started hitting pads right away.
Okay.
You know, and him like killing me every single day. It was really brutal, and like it was like getting thrown to the wolves, you know. Like I really dove into the deep end where doing classes and stuff, it's, you know, you have so many different aspects of people out there. You got women and kids and moms.
Class might be somebody that wants to be more fit. They might be doing it for conditioning. They don't want to like
really,
fight.
Gear it to the masses, you know, to keep everybody covered. While there might be fighters in there, it still has to be applicable to just casual people, you know, and that's really why I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to just. I knew how long that would take, you know, as opposed to getting that full on training. But it's also the really hard way to go into. It's like diving into college, you know, and like you're on this accelerated course to get there, which is brutal. But that's how you get to where you're at quicker. Same thing with on the fighting aspect of it. I mean, I immediately was in there fighting guys with 30, 40, 50 fights. I mean, the first guy I ever fought, I think he had 40 something fights and like 20 pounds on me. And that was like a theme throughout my entire career up until recently, you know, where now I'm on the flip side of that was I was fighting guys who I literally had no business on paper being in there with, but going against them, even in losing, each time I took such a gigantic step up in my skill set, my mindset, my physical aspects just raised up each time. So I was taking these like quantum leaps every time I fought,
right.
Even when I was getting crushed, as opposed to some other people who are picking and choosing who they fight and they want to fight people they can beat. It's like, yeah, it might look good and you might have a nice record, but you're not growing as fastly as you could.
And do you feel like that's why you're, you know, kind of as beloved as you are, thought of as highly as you are, because you weren't necessarily scared to take a fight and you wanted to fight Malapat Sanchai, et cetera. You weren't going to wait around for, you know, for them to ask you. You would just go out there and, you know, you'd push the envelope and kind of make things happen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's kind of just what I was known for and how I kind of made a name for myself.
It's kind of the first American to really go out and do that, correct?
Yeah, there wasn't, that was the thing for me coming up was I didn't have anyone to look at as having done this before. Like who do I look up to? There's no one to look up to other than like, I mean, obviously the high level ties and stuff. But when I started, I mean, this is before YouTube and stuff. I mean, we could get tapes and stuff where they were years old, and, you know, there was no exposure. There's no magazine articles. There's no commercials. There's no TV coverage. So like, who do I look to as who do I want to be like? All I can look to is like the elite guys. I'm like, I can never be that good. So as I said, like, I felt like I had such a huge gap, you know, so I didn't realize really even, know what I was doing. Like, I didn't realize I was like leading the way and like honestly, even to this day, I mean, up until a few years ago, I didn't even know that this is who I was in this sport. You know, I didn't know that people looked at me like that. I still think it's weird and crazy. like now I understand, like, people
mentioning in a live feed on Instagram that I was having you on, they're like, oh, a bunch of people, it wasn't just one person. They're like, he's fucking icon, he's American icon. Like, boom, right away they were saying
it's a very strange thing.
It's gotta feel weird.
And as I said earlier, like, my mindset is still like, I just started today. You know, I don't feel like I'm any different than I was the first day I went in the sense that I'm just trying to be better. There's no end. There's no point when you just are done and have everything figured out. So I've never changed that mentality, and that's kind of, you know, what has allowed me to push it as hard as I have and do the things I have. But it's kept me so grounded to where I don't feel any different than the everyday person or the person that just walked in there for their first day. And you know, I don't feel like I've done really anything, you know, and I know that other people view me as this person in the sport and this, you know, icon, and especially in America, but I don't feel that way, and it really confuses me too.
You're just working and you're in a sport, and you're just trying to get better.
I'm just trying to be better.
You're trying to get better.
That was one of the few things.
That's what attracts people even further, is that you're not like, you're not outwardly, you're not trying to pursue success. It's coming at you full speed because you've attracted it because you're working hard.
And that's what one of the things that impressed me the most about Kevin was when I got to work with him with his after his knee surgery. You know, I gave him a couple things to do, and I saw him do it like 5 times that day. And then I'd see him in the gym. He'd be rolling out. He'd be doing stretching, etc. And he's sitting there with his phone, just with YouTube, with Thai fights on YouTube, just watching over and over and over again. And I would go back. I would train a couple people, and I would come back, and he'd be on a different part of his body, but he'd still be doing the same thing. So I mean, just watching hours and hours of film, and not necessarily the opponent that he was, you know, coming up to fight, but just watching fights and just studying. And I kind of saw that, and I even talked to Karen, and I was just like, I'd be willing to help Kevin out. You tell him to come and see me, whatever I can do for that guy, because he's a different person. Because all he's doing is, you know, even when he's sitting there stretching, he's multitasking, stretching, and then also learning how to fight whomever it is, or watching for tendencies or anything along those lines. It had to be, you know, 3-4 hours still doing the same thing. What's your quote? You can never be too good at the basics, right?
You can never be good enough at the basics. Right. And that's something I really try to emphasize on when I teach, but that was something that was really drilled into me, is just how important that foundation is. And you know, that goes across the board in any sport or endeavor in life, is if you don't have that foundation of those basics, you have nothing to build upon, or whatever you do build upon it is going to fall down, you know. And I unfortunately, I think that's not really the mindset these days. And in a lot of fighting, is people, they want to skip to the end, and they don't go through what they need to go through in order to get there. And the problem is, a lot of people can for various reasons, but once you do, you can't maintain there. And so rare these days do you see someone that can dominate at a high level for even a few months, let alone years and years and years.
That's true.
Because they don't have that foundation. And I think that's the unfortunate side of things gaining in popularity with the money, with the exposure. People don't want to go through what they needed to go through before, because back in the day, it was like, you're only doing this because you love it. Like, there's no end goal. You're never going to get paid ever. You're never going to be on TV. You're never going to do this. Every single person in the sport when I started was doing it because they absolutely loved it and they didn't want to do anything else. And it's very different.
Has there been any, you know, you talk about how kind of having a solid foundation. Has there been any hiccups along the way? Like, it's, you know, I think sometimes it's confusing to people to hear, you know, Jesse and I are two people that have struggled with addiction in our family. And it's crazy to hear someone say, yeah, I was, you know, addicted to alcohol. And then I was like, oh, Muay Thai is cool. And then bam, I went into, like, it sounds like just all of a sudden out of nowhere, you're like, you know, hit by, you know, struck by lightning, and then you you changed your life forever. Was there any like setbacks in that? Or is there like, even today, is there stuff that you have to like tell yourself there's something you got to do every day? Or did you have to go to therapy? Did you have to, you know, go to AA? Did you, you know, anything like that?
Yeah, well, yeah, there's been tons and tons of setbacks, you know, and I think that's when you really need to remind yourself of that mentality you had in the beginning. Like when I blew my knee out, and I didn't know if I could ever train again, let alone fight again, particularly fight at a high level again,
Right.
you know, and there was a little while in there, like I really just gave up or got close to giving up.
Yeah, your will waver a lot.
Yeah,
during those times.
Was just, it just seemed impossible to me to ever get back here again, and especially after I had already been in the sport for 12 years. You know, I'm already ancient at that time, and now I'm really ancient in fighting.
You're in your 40s, right? Or
37.
30s? Okay.
Come on.
There we go.
Got a couple years to go, man. But yeah, it was really tough. And you know, I'd like to say that I was just stayed strong through the whole thing. But no, I completely was broken, you know, and I really thought there was no hope. And, you know, hearing people continually tell me like how they looked up to me, and then like, you know, believed in me, and all the people over the years just that have reached out to me, like really like sunk it in again, just like it did day one, was, do you love to do this? Yeah. Can you physically do this? I didn't know that answer at the time, but I'm going to still give it everything I have. And that same mentality that got me started is what I've had to maintain to this day. You know, 3 years ago, right before I signed with Bellator, I went through a series of 2 really bad knockout losses. I'd never been knocked out before. Lost my world title, had those 2 losses, and it's like, maybe I can't do this anymore. You know, I want to still do this, but maybe I physically can't. And, you know, after some time, I had to sit there and realize, all right, what are the questions we have again? Do we love to do this? Yeah. Does that mean we're still going to be the greatest in the world? I don't know, but I still love to do this, so I'm going to still do this. Physically, can I do it? And then I went back and watched those fights. I'm like, all right, I got hit really hard. I took a flying knee to the face, and I still like bounced back up. So obviously your brain's still, you can still take some shots. Like it's not that bad. You know, if I was like getting knocked out in training and stuff like that, maybe we can start questioning whether I can physically do this anymore. But since I could still answer yes to those questions, then the result of that isn't what the most important part to me. Like, can you still be in the top 10 in the world? Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just going to be someone in the gym training really hard and trying to be at my best, but I'm not going to give up, because this is what I love to do. And it doesn't really matter to me if I can't do it at the same level or you know, the same ability. I'm going to do it because I love it, not because I'm getting something out of it, like titles and things like that.
It sounds like you're a rational person, and that fucking helps a lot.
Yeah, it helps. It helps. It's still hard though,
because
you know
with the tattoos on the neck and the blood coming down the face when you're in the ring,
I forget about
it's
those
like,
things.
no one would think that he's a rational person, right? But you're talking yourself through these things, and I think sometimes that's what can be confusing about addiction, is because sometimes people that are addicted to drugs, sometimes they have you know, they have other problems going on. They're bipolar or whatever the case might be, and they're not rational. And they can't really talk themselves through it. So you were able to kind of do that, and it sounds like you're still doing it to this day.
It's a daily thing. You know, I think with all the aspects of it, just the fighting and then drinking and things like that, it's not something you just have that's fixed one day, and it's not. Right. I mean, even just training or fighting or powerlifting, things like that, you don't just like have it and don't have to try anymore, and just you're like set at this level forever, you know. And that's in anything. If you're not continually like staying sharp and pushing yourself, you're gonna deteriorate. And you know, that's something I'm constantly reminded of, and that's why I'm constantly in the gym and constantly like trying to stay as healthy as possible mentally and physically is I know as soon as I give up, that's a wrap.
Is pain somehow a motivator?
Is pain a motivator?
Because it looks like when I watch you fight, it certainly looks like a motivator. Because I see you getting nailed with some good shots, and it's probably just instinct at this point. But you get nailed with some good shots, and it looks like then you're really like in the middle of the fight.
We were shooting these interviews for this little video we were putting together for me, and I was watching one of my friends. He got asked that question about me, and he's like, "Why do you think that is?" And I don't like enjoy pain at all. I don't like it at all. I don't want to get hit or do anything. Yeah. But what he said really was like a light bulb moment for me. He's like, I don't think it's that he likes it. I think it's that he knows he can take it more than you can. Mm. And that really has always been something for me in fighting and in training, is like, I know I can go harder than you and I will never give up. And no matter, even if I'm not good enough, I know I can push that aspect of it. And I think that is what has really allowed me to beat a lot of the people I shouldn't have beat, is because I'm willing to die in there. I'm willing to give every ounce of myself, and I'm never going to quit. And you're going to have to kill me to make me give up. And that mentality alone is enough to break a lot of people, and so for me, I've always been a person that, like, I don't want to knock people out, because anybody can get knocked out with the right shot. I want to make people quit, because you have to consciously quit. Right. And so for me, that's such a more difficult thing to do, to break somebody's will. And so that's always my motivation, is I want to break people, because I'm not going to get broken.
That was one of the videos I saw, was where you were kind of mentioning that mentality. And I heard something recently too, where somebody said, he who can suffer the most can do the most, or can do the best, and it definitely goes along with, what your fighting principle. Jesse sent me a video, and in the beginning of the video, it says, Oso. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right.
Os.
Yeah. What's
don't worry, nobody can pronounce it.
Yeah. Well, I just see the OSU or the OSU. Right?
You thought it was Ohio State University.
And I'm like,
you went to? He was a Buckeye.
I was like, I think he's from California. No. So what's some of that about?
So that's a company with a guy in Holland. His name's Johnny Bang Riley, and he hit me up. I think it was about 2 years ago. I'd been watching a lot of his stuff. He does a lot of like inspirational videos.
He's got tats on his face.
He's got tattoos on his face. Yeah. He's like a what do you call it? A Renaissance man.
He should be in Peaky Blinders, right?
He should be. He should
Absolutely, should be in Peaky Blinders.
He's a poet. He's a rapper. He's a martial artist. He's a movement guy, and he has so many different aspects of his life. And I would watch a lot of his videos and things over the years and stuff. And every once in a while I would put him out there, and one of my friends back east, he was like, "Hey, I know that guy," and or we're in contact with each other, and he's like, I think it'd be really cool if you guys did a video one day, and I'll put you into contact with each other. And I thought, I didn't really think anything of it. I didn't think he would ever contact me. And then a couple of days later, I get an email from him, which just really surprised me. And then we got on a Skype chat. It was such a weird thing, because like I'm so used to like hearing this guy's voice on these videos and then like seeing him in that aspect, and then I'm sitting there talking to him, and it's like talking to this inspirational video, because like that's just how he speaks. Like his tone and everything. It's like constantly.
That video is really cool.
And he was like, "Yeah, I think it'd be really cool if we did a video." And he's had some ideas, and he's like, "I'd really like to put some of your words," because he'd seen some of my writings and stuff. He's like, "We should take one of your blogs or something, and I'll do like the voiceover of it, and we'll put you in there doing the action and stuff." And I just happened to have this, like, I've literally only wrote one thing that was kind of came off like a poem almost, and it was really about my fears of getting started and putting down the bottle and things like that. And I just written it, and I was like, well, this one might work really well. He put together this little what do you call it?
Like a vignette type thing.
Wow.
I don't even know.
A vignette.
He doesn't even know what that means.
A storyboard.
There you go. Oh, gotcha.
Is that what a vignette is?
Yeah, gotcha.
Well, look at Mark. Fancy
so he puts together this storyboard, and And, you know, like even to that point, we'd been talking for a while. I still didn't think too much of it. You know, I don't ever really put too much emphasis on things people say and what they're going to do. And like, yeah, we're going to have this really great thing. Like, you've been in the sport long enough, you kind of know, like, most things don't ever happen.
Whatever. Yeah.
So it's not that I didn't take them seriously. I just know that, you know, maybe nothing's ever come up. Next thing you know, he's like, all right, you want to get on a plane? I'm like, what? All right. He's like, yeah, I have the production crew and everything all together. We have the whole storyboard done. We have everything done. And I'm like, all right. So I got on a plane, flew over to Holland. We shot the film in like 2-3 days. And it was really, again, another very surreal thing for me, because there I am.
Looks really high production. There's probably a shitload of cameras, probably a lot of people involved in that, right? And you're fucking doing your shit in
Andy
water.
Sauer,
There's a goddamn wolf in there for some reason.
He's like, we're going to have wolves, man. I'm like, wolves? What the hell? I went over there and they had these 2 wolves.
You're like, I'm brave, but I ain't
they were in
fucking...
you were in the studio with them during the whole thing?
Hang out with them. It was pretty cool. So they had their trainers and stuff. And, you know, the whole time it was such a weird thing. And like, you know, I'm asking him questions. Really I'm like, well, can we do it like this? And he's like, this is your thing. Like, these are your words. This is your life. Like, this is you. You do whatever you want. And it's still such a strange thing for me to see, like to hear him speak words that I wrote that are about my life, and like to see that video that kind of encompasses everything I've done, and it's very strange.
What's up with you writing? What's going on with that?
I don't know, man.
You're writing blogs and shit, like writing poetry.
Like,
and stuff?
I think he's just surprised that you know how to spell, Kevin.
I you know, I like to surprise people. I back in the day, you know, I would write about my experiences in fighting, because I'd always have, I don't know what it is, but if you travel with me, or with or without me, I have the craziest things happen whenever I go overseas. Like, I don't even know how to get into it, but
and then you were just like, I need to document this shit.
You would think everything's made up. I mean, stuff straight out of movies. And, you know, even way back, you know, 10, 15 years ago, I was like, I should probably like write this stuff down, because I'm never going to remember it, you know? So I just started like writing stuff and keeping track of it. And, you know, this is back in MySpace days. And,
you dominated MySpace back in the fucking day.
I don't think I had very many followers back then. But I one day I was just like, oh, I'm going to put this online. And, you know, it was about one of my crazy trips in China and almost getting killed over there and having to get snuck out of the city and stuff. Which is a typical thing when you travel with me, but so
it just happens every time.
It does. Yeah. It's crazy, and like I warn people when we go overseas.
You're like, this is
one of my
buddies
came with me last time I went to Thailand. I was like, look, man, I don't want to freak you out, but really bad things always happen to me when I travel.
Shit ain't gonna go smooth.
Just know that I warned you, and you can deal with the consequences. Anyway, so I put that up there, not thinking much of it, just for the hell of it, and people started hitting me up and emailing me. I'm like, wow, that was really cool. It was really cool to read. And like, I really love the way you write, because if, you know, I can really feel like I'm there and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. But it happened more and more. And that kind of motivated me to definitely keep track of it more when I would travel and stuff. And, you know, I would just start putting them up online, and people just seemed to really love them. So
and again, this is probably one of the first. Again, you know, you're an American in a non-American you know, fighting situation, and you're putting these things up. So you're, you know, again, kind of ahead of the curve of, you know, documenting, you know, these things. And to this point, you've released at least one book of kind of your journaling heading into fights.
Yeah. You know, well, now I have so many stories and things I've kept track of and written down that I'm like, well, maybe I should put a book out one of these days. I mean, I think I always planned on doing a full book one day, but I was also like, well, when am I actually going to write this? Like when I retire? But like, even if I retire, I'm still going to have more stories and stuff. So like, I'm constantly going to be adding to this. Maybe I should just do a small book on one like story, and then do a series of books on different fights, on different kind of crazy things that have happened. And it's like, all right, I'll do one, and you know, I'll do it myself and just kind of see how the process goes, how much of a pain in the ass it is, like if people would even want to see this. And so, you know, I picked probably my most monumental fight with Sanchai, and decided to make that the first book.
Can we pause? Can you talk about who Sanchez is and what that really means? And because, I mean, it's one of those things where, not that you didn't have business fighting him, but it was kind of just like that it was a really big step for the sport, specifically in America, for you to go over there and be willing to do this.
Yeah.
It was a pretty big deal.
Maybe just back up even a step further a little bit. Like, what the fuck's it like to you do a sport like Muay Thai and you're in Vegas and you're learning it and you feel like you're getting better and you probably fight locally, I guess. Is that where you started? And then you're going over to fucking Thailand?
Yeah.
You know, like that, wouldn't you be?
There's a couple of steps missing in there.
Yeah, wouldn't you just be shitting your pants? I mean,
well, probably for a couple of reasons.
Yeah. I think that, as I said before, that same kind of mentality
sounds crazy.
Was like, I have no business here to begin with. So even though that was at such a higher level, like once you know you don't belong somewhere, like how high up that level goes doesn't really change how it affects you. You know what I mean? Whether it's 1 degree above where you should be or 100, like it's all the same in my mind.
Like if I'm going to look dumb, I'm going to look dumb anyway. So whatever. You know, someone's going to knock my ass out. How much worse could it be?
So in that aspect of it, I didn't really like think about it too much. You know, it was never really a conscious thing. Like, is this a good idea or a bad idea? It was just like, this is what I'm going to do. And this is what I have to do to get better. Not should I do this or shouldn't I do this? You know, I look back on almost all of my career and like, I wouldn't tell people to do the things I've done. You know what I mean? Like, it was really not smart, not safe.
Feel free to contact Kevin for coaching at...
I'm like, I wouldn't tell anyone to do most of the things I've done. But in looking back, if I had the mentality I have now, I probably wouldn't do them because I would try to be a lot smarter and safer. But if I was to do things a lot smarter and safer, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am today. Never would have made it here, ever. You know, so I think it's a progression thing, and you learn things along the way. But in the beginning, you just have to dive in head first. Like that's kind of the only way. I mean, there's better ways to do it, starting earlier and doing that and stuff. But again, for me, I knew I was so far behind. I had to find the biggest wolves I could find and go after them. You know, so yeah, the first time going to Thailand was a huge eye-opening thing. You know, it's like you have this aspect of, oh yeah, I'm getting better, and I could definitely beat the hell out of people that don't know how to fight, and I've been crushing everybody in America. You know, not to say I had an ego about it, because I definitely didn't think I could even like hang in there with some of those guys, but to really see and feel how different it is there, like. Children are throwing me around that I outweigh by 50 pounds and just like crushing me. I'm like, whoa. You know, it's when you realize how many levels there are to something, it's a really eye-opening experience. But for me, it was that much more of a motivator, you know, seeing where the top is. I'm like, well, now no, I'm really far behind. Like I thought I was pushing it hard before. There's no way I can get here. And, the children are crushing me. So, so that just inspired me more. I think a lot of people might have deterred them, but for me, it was an extreme motivator for me. So
the first time you went, did you fight or just train?
Both. Yeah. So the first time I went to this camp. This is they didn't have any foreigners there. It's not like it is now where like people go there to train and it's like a typical thing. Like not a single person there.
It's like almost kind of welcoming probably now versus
so I was the first,
more standoffish maybe.
I think the first foreigner to ever go to this camp, and this was a back alley, like middle of nowhere camp. Not a single person spoke English. It was brutal, and I was there for 3 months. When I got over there, my trainer's brother picked me up, and he basically, he talked to me for a little bit. He spoke English, and he just dropped me off at this camp that was in this alley and left. And it's like, so, now what? Like, I can't ask questions. I can't, I'm just here. I just got to do it. And like, every fighter that was there is just looking at me like, oh geez, like here's this freaking American, it's like spoiled, like, and I knew that, and for me it was like, I'm never gonna beat these people. I'm never gonna be better than these people. all I wanted to do was just earn their respect. I was like, I refuse to be some little bitch about things and like have things catered to me. Cause I had read some things about foreigners that had gone to Thailand in the past and they like kind of babied them and gave them like separate training. And I was like, I refuse to do that. I'm like, I'm going to do every single thing they do with them, or I'm not going to do it at all. And really that's what I did. And I think after that first day or two, you could really see their mentality change towards me because they realized that I wasn't that way. And, you know, I think a lot of people, for me, I have that same mentality towards people. Like, I don't care what level you're at. If you show that desire and will to want to get better, that's all that I care about. I don't care if it's your first day. Like, if you show me that this is what you want to do and you have that same heart for it and passion for it that I do, like, I'll train you every single day of the week. You know what I mean? So for that, you know, being there training with them and then fighting, that was really the thing. It was like, I just want to earn these people's respect and show them that there are people in America that can do this too, you know, because I mean, we're still a joke in the Muay Thai kickboxing world, but back then it was, I don't know if there's a word for it, like joke, like not possible joke. You know what I mean? Like not even on the radar.
Were you one of the first Americans to be a champion?
Yeah, for sure. And you know, there was a handful of us that were out there pushing it and fighting the highest level, and that actually is how that Can't Stop Crazy got started. Was there was a group of us, you know, a couple guys, a couple girls. We didn't train together, but we were always at fights and fighting on the same cards, and we were the ones that were out there, really the few that were really willing to put it all on the line, and we kind of came together and realized that was the situation. We were kind of friends back then, but we really kind of banded together and wanted to create our own group to promote ourselves and to promote the sport and to help it grow. And that was really a huge monumental leap here in the States for Muay Thai at the time, when really helped get it on the world's radar, you know, because we were the ones out there like swimming with the sharks.
So talk more about Saenchai. So that leads us pretty much into our Saenchai fight. Yeah.
So Saenchai is basically Mayweather of Muay Thai. You know, he has been dominating multiple weight classes forever now, and even dominating, like, he makes the best fighters in the world look like babies. Literally babies. Like, he's joking around with them, particularly when he goes and fights overseas and stuff. It's like, it's just a demo, you know. It's a joke. And you know, there's been like literally two other people that have even had a competitive fight with him as far as foreigners go. And I don't really know how it happened. It was kind of like, for me, it was this like slow progression, like fighting in Thailand was like, that's never going to happen. Like, I'm never going to do that. And like, I did it. And then the next thing was like, fighting this super high level at the time Thai here in the States. And then I beat him. And then there was another one. And it was like, each time was these progressions and these giant steps up, but each time it was a huge leap, you know? So going to Saenchai, even though I was still fighting super high level guys at that time, he's just in a league of his own, you know, like literally one of the greatest Muay Thai fighters of all time. And it was weird because it actually had been talked about for a while. I just thought, I was like, there's no way that's ever going to happen. You know, it's just not going to happen, you know. And he was fighting a lot of people overseas because there's a lot more money for them overseas, and you know, they can get more exposure, and it's easy. They don't have to train, and they can just go around doing demos basically. Right. I mean, it's fights of life for the other people, but it's just a joke for them. And it just kind of happened, and they're like, yeah, we got to fight with Saenchai, and it's for the WBC Diamond Belt, which is they've never done before in Muay Thai. I think they did it once or twice in boxing. It's just supposed to represent like the two elite fighters fighting, and then like this is what a special thing for it.
Did you have a pretty good record built up at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I had good record. I mean, he's got 300 fights. It's funny. Like, I got a photo of like the stats as we walked out, and it's like 267 and whatever. And then I was like 25 and 4. Yeah. So, you know, going in, prior to this fight, you know, people were like, what, why? Like, why? You know, it was like, just, there's no point in this. It's just for him to come over here, and which is great. You know, everybody wants to see it and it's cool and all, but Kevin's going to get killed in a minute. But I was pretty used to people saying that. People had been saying that my whole career to that point. It was just like, why? Like, you have no business in there with these people at all. This was a completely different level, but it was more the same for me. Like, right. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know. You know, and I really went through a lot of that during training and stuff. You know, there was days I would wake up like it was any other fight. You know, like I'm just going to kill myself in training, and I'm going to kill myself in the ring and see how it turns out. And then other days I would wake up like, what are you thinking? You're an idiot. Like, there's no way on earth you're going to touch him, let alone be competitive. Like, he's going to knock you out in like 2 seconds or whenever he wants to. Right. You know, and like, well, he might, but he might not. You know, and that could very well happen, but you're not going to know until you get in there. And that's another kind of mentality I think I've always had, and that's why I've gone into so many fights against guys like that, going into fights with the flu, going into fights with broken hands, and it's like, you don't know until you do it. Like, it's easy for me to sit here and be like, oh, well, my hand's broken, maybe I shouldn't fight because I can't use it, but I don't know what's going to happen when I get in there. You know, like a week before my world title fight, I broke my ribs and I couldn't breathe for 2 days, and I was literally in bed and having to sit up and couldn't sleep because I couldn't breathe. And I'm like, I worked for the last 12 years to get to this point, and I can't touch it. How am I going to fight somebody? Because as soon as he touches me, I'm going to go down, you know? And then I really kind of dealt with that for like a day or two, just like, there's no way. Like, I'm gonna cancel the fight, heal up. That way, you know, I can give it my all, and, you know, we'll fight in a month or two. But then that same thing always pops in my head. Like, you just don't know what's gonna happen. You can go in there, he might not even touch that, or you might be able to handle it. You don't know. And I went in there and had like the performance of my life, and then ended up beating him, crushing him pretty badly. So it was the same mentality for this fight. It was like, you just don't know what's going to happen. And I went in there and had one of the most competitive fights with him of any foreigner ever, and lost a split decision, something like that. But again, for me, this was another fight where it wasn't even about winning and losing, which most of my fights, I don't really think about that. It's like, I need to feel good about it. I need to know that there's nothing more I could have done in training, in the fight, all these aspects. I know that I gave it everything I had, and the results are going to be the results. I mean, you only have so much control over that anyway. As long as I know I was honest with myself and I gave it everything I had, and ended up having that crazy fight with him. And it's weird because, you know, you look back now and it's like, oh yeah, you did that. You had a close fight with him, but think about a week before that fight, what the talk was like. There's no way. There's no way. You're not gonna make it out of the first minute. Same with my buddy Joe. You know, he had a fight with Kalkalai, which was another gigantic name in Muay Thai, and all the talk beforehand was like, you're gonna die, you're gonna get killed. And then he ends up knocking him out, which he told everybody he was gonna do. He's like, I'm gonna knock him out in the first round, and that's exactly what he did. And then afterwards, it's like, oh well, you know, you're bigger than him, and you know, you got lucky, or, you know, he's old. It's like, where's all that talk from before? You know, it's like, but the people that are in there doing it know what's what, you know? And for me, that's all I care about. I like, people can say whatever they want about anything, about fights, about decisions, about things like that. Like, you and that person know exactly what happened and how things went down. And other people are always going to say what they're going to say, but as long as you know what you did, then that's all I care about.
I find it really interesting with fighting, you know, with like basketball or football or something, you know, you play it. You know, it's a team sport, and there's can be many different outcomes for many different reasons. The best player could have been down, or execution could have been off the day for that day, or whatever. But in MMA, I always find it really fascinating that, or in Muay Thai or kickboxing or boxing, that you're square off against somebody. It's one-on-one, and sometimes the other person is imposing their will on you and kicking the shit out of you. How the fuck do you overcome some of that? How does that, is that training? Is that like a mindset? Like if he and I are fighting and he's beating the shit out of me, and just even off the first jab, if he just fucking drills me with the first jab, it's like, how do you have the ability to keep going, to keep fighting?
Well, that aspect of it is definitely 100% mental. Well, you do need to have the physical aspect of it, but if you don't have that mental aspect of it, your physicality is worthless.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's only going to get you to a certain point, but if you don't have that will to keep going, no matter what the odds look like, there's no way you can do this.
Have you had that happen before? Like the second you get in there, the guy touches you and you're like, what the fuck was that?
Of course. Yeah.
Holy shit, that guy's strong, like fast or strong or whatever.
Obviously with the Sanchez fight, it was that way. I'm just like, holy shit. Like this is, I
know they told me about this,
see
but
what he's doing.
What was that?
I can't see what he's doing. I literally can't see it. I can just, I know he's going to hit me, and I got hit. I don't know where it was or what he hit me with. But again, it's like, I'm just going to keep going and keep pushing it. And I'm going to try to break his will. And it's like the same thing with injuries or anything else like that happened mid-fight. Like, yeah, this happened and this is a setback. I can quit, or I can say, oh, my hand's broke, which a lot of people do. And like, okay, we understand. The fight's over. Yeah. And I saw, before I ever fought, I saw this really great documentary with George Foreman, and he talked about how it was like the first time he got knocked out, and how he realized how much of that is a mental thing. Of course, there's a physical aspect of it. Like when your lights get turned out, they're out. But so many times it's a mental decision where people quit, and you see it. And if you know that's what's going on, you can really see it.
It was demoralizing for him. He was gone for 20 years.
He said he made the decision that I'm never going to lose like that again unless I'm dead. Because, and you really have to make that conscious decision, because when you're in there, you're not making that conscious thought. You have to have that mentality already. You can't figure it out there. Like, what am I going to do? Like, you either have it or you don't. Right. And you see people quit, even though they might be a little dazed and woozy. There's that fine line in between where it's a conscious decision, or even if it's not conscious, a subconscious decision that they made earlier. Maybe not on purpose, but a lot of that comes from things that happen in the gym, things that happen in training, when you kind of ease back a little bit on some like really hard sprints and stuff, or days you don't want to go in there. It's those little things, those decisions to keep pushing it when you don't have anything left, when you've had a really bad day, or you're sick, or you're injured, and going forward anyway, and giving it everything you have anyway, that comes out in the fight. Because at that point, you can't make these decisions. You have to have that mentality. The hard part for me is, or for anybody, is where do you draw that line of, am I hurt, or am I just injured? Am I sick to where this is going to really fuck me up worse? Or am I just being a little baby and I got a cold and maybe I should go out running or something? And the problem is nobody can tell you where that line is. You have to make the decision, because you have to be willing to deal with the things that happen, good and bad, because of it. And I can't sit here and say, oh, you have a broken toe, maybe you should take the day off, or maybe you should go over there and stand on one leg and hit the bag. That's what I did when my knee was blown out. I just stood on one leg and punched the bag, and then a lot of people would have taken that time to sit at home and get fat. But for me, I was in the gym the next day doing sit-ups, and I'm like, I can do something, right? Even if it's laying in bed, like mentally going over things, there's always something you can do. And it's the people that are willing to push it farther and to find where that line is. Because the problem is that line, our body wants to keep us safe, and our mind wants to keep us safe, and it wants to quit way before you actually should. just in order to keep you safe, you know? So I think what I realized is, and one thing that's always helped me is like, as soon as I feel like, all right, maybe we should ease back, that's when I'm like, I'm gonna go harder now, because I know that's bullshit. One, I'm like, I wrote this thing, it's called I don't know if it was your subconscious or something, like your mind's a liar. You know?
Yeah, it is kind of lying to you.
No, I'm like, no, fuck you, dude. I'm in control.
It talks you out of stuff all day long. I mean,
you have this split personality of your subconscious wants to keep you safe, and he's doing his best to keep everything cool, but he's also not going to be able to make it to the best in the world.
Right.
And you have to tell him to shut up, you know? And again, I can't tell you you should always say shut up and go to the gym anyway when you're broken. Because there are some times when maybe that's not the best idea and it's counterproductive, but more times than not, you're just being a baby about it.
Think about how many times a day that happens. Like your mind is talking you out of doing the stuff that you promised yourself you wanted to do in the first place. The goals that you set out, the different things that you told someone the night before that you wanted to do. Immediately the next day, you're talking yourself out of them. It could be the smallest thing. Like even when you have to take a piss in the morning, you're like, don't fucking get up. Just keep sleeping. This feels good. This feels comfortable. And you just keep snoozing, right? Like it could be the smallest thing. It could be your food choices for the day. Like you decide, I don't know, you want to get on a regimen, you want to lose weight, you want to get in shape for a fight or whatever it might be. Next thing you know, you're eating cereal and you almost forgot about the conversation that you had with yourself or your friend the night before.
Yeah, that's something I try to instill in people is like almost every moment of every day, you have these decisions to either be stronger or weaker. And it can be something as simple as having a beer or having a snack. It's like, do you think when you get to where it counts, you're suddenly going to have this no quit mentality?
He's talking to you, Burdick.
It's not going to happen.
Directly to me. No.
And
It's getting hot in here, isn't it?
one of my first trainers, he was like, you have to do everything in the gym at 100% to be 70% in the ring, because that is where things are going to fall apart. You're going to have somebody's trying to kill you. So if you're not doing everything you can outside of the ring, you can't just turn it on in there. And you see it. And so many people in training, it's like they kind of half-ass it. They don't give it their all. They take days off. And I'm not going to tell you that's wrong. But what I am going to tell you is you're not just suddenly going to be miraculously turn it on when all the lights are on and everyone's looking at you like, and your life is on the line. Like you think you're just going to be this badass. Like you have to do it with every decision you make every single day. You have these opportunities to get stronger, to get weaker. And the more you can make those choices in the right direction, the more you're going to be able to make the big ones when maybe you don't have this conscious thought about whether you can or can't do something.
So besides maybe the Saenchai fight, having this mentality going in and, you know, just being able to make the hard decisions all the time, was there another fight besides maybe that one where you're like, okay, cool, I got my game plan, I know what I'm going to do. You walk in and you're like, well, that goes out the window. Let's just see what's going to happen here.
Yeah. Well, I've lots again, like just like traveling for me, like the worst things happen to me in fighting. I don't know. I guess like I needed all that stuff to happen.
Getting to the fight sounds like a victory for you.
Oh,
really.
God,
just getting to the goddamn ring.
Like if I can get in the ring in one piece, that's why like when things are going really well and like everything went great in training, weight cut went good, I'm like, oh God, something bad's going to happen. You know what I mean? Because it's like usually
you've said that before for powerlifters.
Usually if like some really bad stuff happens in training, I'm like, all right, like I got all that out the way.
Got it out of the way.
But my second fight after my knee surgery, that's what happened. I had the best training camp of my life, easiest weight cut ever, best warm up ever. Like I was just on fire. Everything was working. And then we go down to like the staging area where they're about to call me out. Time's going. I'm like, it's taking a while. And I'm slowly like, shoulders are going down, head's going down. Kieran's like, hey, what? He's like, we're going to go soon. I'm like, all right. Time's going by. And I don't remember what happened. They just had some delay or something. But I go out there, first round, just crush the dude. I mean, it's like nothing. Like, I'm just going to walk all over this dude. I go back to the corner, I sit down, and it was like I was underwater with a pound of sand in my throat. I couldn't breathe. My body was just dead. And Kieran's like, how you feeling? And like my first fight after surgery, like I was smashing my feet so bad because my like timing and stuff was bad. And I didn't tell him about it till afterwards. He's like, why didn't you tell me your feet were messed up? And I'm like, oh, what am I going to say? Like it hurts?
Right.
Like, he's like, no, but like you could at least say that and I can kind of give you a little guidance and like maybe we suggest this. And And I was like, all right. And so like in this fight, I was like I literally was dying inside. I couldn't breathe. And he was like, how you feeling? And I didn't want to tell him. I'm like, I'm tired. He's like, what do you mean you're tired? Like you're never going to hear that out of me. Cause that's just like a thing I'm known for is my conditioning. And like, I literally could not breathe and I physically couldn't move. And I was like, I don't know how am I going to fight? I can't stand up. I'm about to pass out. And for a moment there, I was like, well, what would happen if I just walked out of the ring right now? Like, has anyone ever done that before? Like, because like, there's nothing I can do.
Right.
Like, not only can I not fight, I don't know if I can just stand there and pass out. And it was like being held underwater, and like you have to decide. Well, you got to do it anyway, or you can quit. Like I quit, you know. And it turned out I had pneumonia and bronchitis at the time, and just didn't know it because I was kind of putting in the back of my mind while I was training. I had felt a little sick, and you know, but that's always the case, you know. And I just had the most grueling. Like I knew how much time was. Like I had 4 rounds to go.
Yep.
And it's like you're staring at this gigantic hill underwater with weights on in quicksand. And it's like, all right, go sprint up that hill, or you can quit and go home. You know, and every second of every round was like going uphill with 500 pounds on me, with my mouth duct taped shut, you know, and being underwater. And it was just this awful, awful thing. I actually ended up somehow winning and just kind of pushing through that. But it was like, I think that like took years off my life, like having to like push through that and deal with that, you know, but
that was one of the few fights that I've actually been able to kind of watch of yours, and I was sitting next to Katie in first round, just ran through the guy in the second round. I was like, oh crap, I think Kevin's hurt or something. There's
something weird happened.
This is just wrong.
Yeah.
It's just wrong. You weren't answering anything that was thrown, and then you know you ended up with a split decision. I think rounds like 2 and 3 kind of went to him. 4 and 5, he kind of came back and were able to kind of make a nice comeback. And I remember talking to Kieran, and he was like, he told me that he was done like second round. I was like, yeah, it looked like he was done that second and third round, but he was able to turn it around 4 and 5. He's like, yeah, there's something wrong. And then, you know, found out that you should have been in the hospital like for 2 weeks before that.
It really messed me up too afterwards. I mean, I was deathly ill for like 2 months afterwards because it fried my system so bad to like push it at that level in being that sick. But it was just another confirmation to me, which so many times in the ring with stuff like that has been, that if you want something, you're going to have to prove you want it. And as long as you're willing to die for it, you can get it. But that has to be a price you're willing to take. And, you know, for me, it has always, like I said earlier, this has always been like extra credit for me. You know, I shouldn't be here anyway. So even if I was to die in the ring, I knew that I've done so much extra from the point when I should have been dead, and so many positive things. Like I was willing to like really give it everything and push past those points where just you probably shouldn't, you know, but again, I'm willing to deal with the consequences. I'm willing to deal with the good and the bad. I mean, there's no guarantee that I didn't die that day, and there's no guarantee that I won that fight. You know, it's easy to look back now and be like, yeah, you're okay. But I didn't have any promise of a victory here. I didn't have any promise of something really bad happening to me, you know? So sometimes people hit me up and be like, I don't know if I should fight because I got the flu right now. I'm like, I'm not going to tell you to do it. I'm like, you are the one that has to be willing to deal with the consequences. Same with just training in the gym and fighting. It's like, it's very rare. Yeah, people die in fights, but people die in the gym too. You know, people die in headgear, gigantic gloves. It happens. It's rare, but if you're not willing to deal with what can happen to you in there, you shouldn't do this.
Right.
You know, and I'll tell anybody that, like, I mean, anything horrible can happen to you, even if it's a freak thing in a gym when you're doing something dangerous, even lifting. You drop a gigantic weight on your head, you're going to die, you know, and those, you know, I'm sure those things happen. So as long as you're willing to deal with the consequences, then it's easy for somebody outside to say, oh, this is dangerous. You do something else. Yeah, well, life is dangerous. I go outside right now and get ran over. It has nothing to do with Muay Thai. Right. I'd rather do something I love and do something I know is positive for me and positive for people that see it. And maybe I don't make it out of there, but I know that. And I know at least I had the choice, and it was something I was willing to do, not just some stupid bullshit getting ran over by a truck crossing the street.
Right.
You know what I mean?
What's with all the travel and stuff that you mentioned in the blog and stuff, what's a story that people are kind of most attached to that you shared with people?
I don't know.
Well, what's your favorite one then?
My favorite story?
Yeah. I know you have a ton of stories. I mean, you're going to go in America and Thailand.
All over the place, yeah.
I mean, you once told me that you actually went blind during a camp once.
Oh shit, I forgot about that.
So I mean, try and dredge up some of the worst stories. That's what we're interested in. If you got a Thailand poop story, lay it on us.
I got those too, man.
Yep, bring it. Let's hear it.
Well, I think the craziest story was that first trip to China. So me and my buddy Anthony Brown, he trained too. He was actually a cop at the time, and a lead dancer at Bally's and Jubilee, and he's like 50 years old and still fighting. He's pretty amazing. And often just random people would hit up the gym looking for fighters, and we did Muay Thai in this place, and these people in China called the gym looking for 2 fighters to go do Sanshao, which is, it's like kickboxing with takedowns. It's similar to that. I mean, there's no elbows, but there's punches, kicks, knees, that kind of thing. And like, hey, do you want to go over to China and do this Sanshao fight? These 2 Sanshao fights, actually. We're like, oh yeah, of course. Why not? Let's go do it. We've never trained in the sport ever. We had about 5 days to practice. So yeah, let's go.
Perfect.
They're like, oh yeah, we're going to take you to the China Wall and see the Shaolin Temple and stuff. We're like, oh, that's cool. Free trip to China. This is 14 years ago. So it's not like we thought there was ever any chance of making money. So it's like, oh, cool trips and stuff. That's a huge bonus.
Right.
Know? So it's like, yeah, let's go. So we ended up going over there with this girl who's a Sanshao fighter and her coach, who is Chinese. They were actually from San Francisco. We flew to San Francisco, met them. We'd never met them before. We didn't know them. And he was the one that was going to kind of take care of us. And then we flew over there to China. And so the first day, or the first fight, it's at this stadium, bells and whistles, the lights and everything, and all the people. Go over there and fight. I actually ended up getting my skull fractured because this dude kicked me in the back of the head. He had a steel plate in his, this is it, in his shin guard. I didn't know at the time that he fractured my skull, but it's actually coming up here soon. Oh, it's the worst sound in the world, too.
You had a bunch of complications from that, didn't you?
Yeah. So, I heard it's coming. Anyway.
Cheating motherfucker.
So he kicks me in the back of the head and breaks my skull, but I ended up stopping him. I got up and stopped him, which really messed with his head. Yeah. And then, so that fight happened, and it was relatively normal other than that. And like I said, I didn't know that was this. And I didn't know my skull was fractured because it's not like it was cut or anything. It was on the inside. And the next day, we had another fight, and they took us on this crazy,
right there, that was it.
Yeah, this crazy 10-hour bus ride into the middle of the jungle. Like, this was in like a city, like near Beijing or something. And we're on this bus for 10 hours into the middle of nowhere. And where are we fighting? Like, there is not even a building around here or a paved road or anything. And so we're driving through not the woods, but the jungle on this dirt road in this bus. Just oh my gosh, this is the weirdest thing. And my buddy Anthony, like I said, he was a cop, so he's looking around for landmarks. If we have to bail, I need to know where we are. And and the girl she was getting really quiet, and her mom was actually there too. And so they stopped talking, and we're just in the middle of nowhere. And all of a sudden, I start hearing this banging, what is that noise, man? It's getting louder and louder. And we pull up, and there's this long driveway, and it's lined with people playing drums, and it's this temple, like out of a Bruce Lee movie, just in the middle of nowhere. And we're driving, there's drums being played, there's people out there clapping, it's like the whole parade thing going on. Like, what is going on here? And they're like, we get out of the car and we're like, we don't know what's going on. And they didn't speak any English. And the Chinese guy that was with us, he seemed a little weirded out by the whole thing too. And he's like, oh, this is where the fight's going to be. And they're like, all right, well, here's a room. You guys can go back and chill. And we're trying to figure out what's going on, but he wasn't saying much. We didn't know what was happening. And like, oh, you're going to fight in a couple hours. And, you know, they have some students that train here that we're going to put on an exhibition. Like, all right, that sounds cool. And then all of a sudden some guy comes to me. He's like, no, we're going to fight right now. It's like, here. And they are like, okay. And they like brought us in this room. We're like, here's your changing room. And it was like this, like there was 6 of us in this room. Like, this is our warm up changing room. Like, all right. I guess we'll just do what we can. Like, we didn't know who we were fighting or what was going on. And as I said, the guy told us, oh, it's just an exhibition, don't worry about it. And then he left and they shut the door. And the Chinese guy was like, he's a liar. He's like, it's not an exhibition. He's like, they're gonna try to hurt you. And then I came to find out the dude that I stopped was like the head guy, the mob guy's kid. And like, this is like the compound.
You're like, what the hell?
I was like, oh my gosh, dude, like for real? I'm like, oh man. I was like, well, what do you want me to do? Should I go out there and just like let him beat me or what? Because like for me, I was like, if it was just me, like I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna try to crush this guy. I don't care if they kill me or whatever. And but now I'm thinking about like my friends there and that girl. I'm like, well, now I gotta worry about them. So I asked him like, what do you want me to do? Like, should I go out there and do it? And he's like, no, I want you to hurt him. I was like, all right, dude, I'm gonna go out there and do my thing. And it was this ring and this huge crowd of people just standing around it. And I'm like, somebody's just gonna like stab me or like cause so much weird stuff had gone on. And like, it's not like there's like a commission there or anything like that. And like, we're in the middle of nowhere. And my buddy Anthony is like, dude, they're gonna kill us here and just dump us. He's like, what they're gonna do is say, you came yesterday to the event and we didn't see you again.
Never saw you.
And like, what are you gonna say? Like, who are you gonna tell? And I'm like, and we're thinking like, even if we escape this place, we don't know where we are in the world. Like, I know we're in China, maybe. Right. You know what I mean? But like, what do you go to a gas station? There's no gas station. You knock on some farmer's door and like, hey man, they're trying to kill me. And yeah, so like I literally thought I was gonna die walking to the ring. I actually took this photo in the changing room of like it was out looking over all this farmland. 'Cause I literally thought this is where I was gonna die. But I actually like at the time I was like, well, if you gotta go, like this is not so bad. It's kind of cool. I mean, you know, I'm doing what I love. I mean,
it's a good way to go.
Sure. You know, there's a lot worse things that could happen. Like I've just always kind of had a peace with death because, like I said, I always thought I was going to be dead early anyway. You know, so for me, it was like, well, I got like 4 extra years in there. That was pretty good. I've done some cool stuff. So I go out there. As I said, I didn't think I was going to make it to the ring, but I did. I ended up stopping that guy, and then
not getting stabbed.
Well, that was the thing. Like stopped him. You know, they raised my hand. I'm like, well, this is it. Like, I'm not going to make it back to the locker room. You know, so I'm just like walking, just literally waiting for something to kill me or someone to beat me down or anything, and made it all the way back. I'm like, all right, well. That didn't happen. And then, you know, that they, my boy Anthony fought, Jenna fought. They actually both lost. Well, not really, but didn't get the victory. And then I'm like, oh, well, now this is definitely it. And we like walk out of the changing room. No people are there anymore. All the lights are off. And this is the middle of nowhere. So it's not like there's street lights. It's pitch black. I'm like, oh my God. So we're trying to walk and like couldn't even see where we were going. And finally we like get out front and the guy that her coach was standing there. There was a van and this dude who looked just like who's the dictator in Korea or North Korea. Looked just like that in the outfit and everything. So he was like the head mob guy. Oh, the other thing was while we were there, all these like super expensive cars are pulling up. Like I said, it was straight out of a movie. Like this is like shit they bet on, like to the death stuff. Like it was like that for real. So like that guy standing over there, like he was kind of in this office to the back, and he's like waving to us to come over. He's like, come on, come here. And our guy's like, no. And he like grabbed himself. Apparently one of the referees snuck us out of there and got his car, and we'd like hopped, like we didn't really know this was going on. We knew something bad was going on. Like I said, they didn't speak English, but you could just tell something bad was happening. And we hopped in the car and we're like driving through the jungle, and then all of a sudden, so we're on these dirt roads, we come up to this fake toll booth. It's just like stick across a giant tree across the road. I'm like, I just saw some dude with a machine gun was going to jump out and just kill us. But like the guy hopped out and like lifted it up, and like we drove off, and we ended up driving through the night to a city. It wasn't until that like later on we found out exactly what happened, that they had to sneak us out. And he's like, yeah, those are bad people, like really bad people. And I'm like, no one's gonna believe this shit. Like even talking about it now, I'm like, people will not believe this. Like I don't believe it, and it happened to me. Like it doesn't seem real. Like it was serious. Like some bad stuff was going down there, and like finally we get out of there, and it's just like this sigh of relief. And that guy, his coach, and he actually knew the referee. They took us to this Sanshao camp in the city with all these people, and it was like the most amazing like experience ever from that point on. Like it was such a cool thing, and we got to see some really great stuff and meet some really great people. But and like to make things just even crazier, like when we were landing in San Francisco, our freaking plane bounced off the freaking runway. Like it hit sideways, shot back up in the air, and like as soon as that happened, I looked over to my friend. I'm like, this is such bullshit. Like, I was like, I just can't deal with this. And it's been like we were there for 10 days. I'm like at a certain point when you think you're gonna die every second every day, eventually you're just like whatever. Like might as well fucking happen. Like
get it over with.
You're just ready for it. It's just a matter of time, you know. So then to actually be back in America on the soil, like I literally felt like somebody that comes back from the war. Like I like down on the ground, kissing the floor. I'm like, oh my God, it's so great to be back in America. It's like when you go over somewhere like that, you don't realize how really alone you are. Like, what are you gonna do if you need help? Like, you're gonna go ask a cop or something? Right. Like, how do you know they're not all together, especially in the jungle?
Right.
Who the hell even set that up for you in the first place?
I don't really know.
You don't remember exactly.
like back then, like I said, they came at us like this was some like event, like two countries like promoting each other, like, oh, we're gonna bring some high level fighters from America, and like I said, they told us we were gonna see all these sites and take us to that never happened.
Right.
We're gonna take them to the China Wall, and like I said, like I really feel like they were gonna say we came, fought, and they sent us on our way, and that was it. But let alone I fought the next day with a fractured skull. But it wasn't until I got back home, and a couple months later, I was actually training for another fight. And I was having a lot of problems with like my vision and stuff. Every time I get hit, I'd see these giant flashes of light, like someone had a strobe light in my eye. I'm like, that's weird. Like it would happen even if I just barely got touched, you know? And I'm like, all right, well, I got this fight coming up. I'm like, maybe I should go get my head checked out just in case. And I went and got an MRI done. And they're like, you have 1.5 inch crack in the back of your skull.
What?
It's like, what happened? I'm like, oh, I just got kicked in the back of the head. And he's like, what do you mean you got kicked in the back of the head? I'm like, well, the guy had shin guards on. He's like, that's not possible. How did you crack your skull? And then I was talking to that Chinese guy, the coach, and he's like, yeah, a lot of times they'll put steel plates in there, and they'll take out, because it's usually bamboo, and they'll take out the bamboo and put steel in there. Oh my God. And like my doctor's like, you should be dead right now or a vegetable. He's like, if you literally get touched there, that's going to happen because it'll just push into your brain. So I had to, I couldn't do anything other than hit the bag for like 3 months because I couldn't risk falling and hitting my head. So I couldn't spar. I couldn't get hit. I couldn't do anything. So that was a hard time.
You just didn't fight for a little while, or?
Yeah, I couldn't get hit. I couldn't even do anything. It was brutal, man, because all I could do was hit the bag and just like, I couldn't risk falling, you know? And that was one of a million hard times, just like you just got to keep going. You got to keep going. You got to, what are you going to quit?
Right.
What are things like right now? Like, you know, you kind of mentioned you kind of didn't belong. It was like you were the underdog all the time.
Yeah.
Well, now you're not. What are fights like now? Like, is it hard to, you know, always remember that it is a fucking fight? You know, do you still have a lot of fight in you to be aggressive and to take care of business the way you need to?
It is tough for me to. It's easy when you don't have to think about keeping yourself sharp because the person in front of you could end you at any moment. It's very different when you're in there when those roles are reversed and you have to make the conscious decision to keep yourself sharp.
Is it maybe important not to think about your opponent that much, just think about yourself maybe?
Yeah, but that's kind of what I always have done.
Yeah.
And it's like, no matter how much you tell yourself, anybody can land a shot, anybody can do anything, no matter how good or bad they are, anything can happen. It's very different when you don't have a choice in the matter and when you do. So right. No matter how much I tell myself this person can land this amazing thing or anything can happen, you know, you can just trip and fall and knock yourself out. It's just not the same.
Yeah, if you see some tape of somebody or see Instagram or whatever and you're not impressed by them, you're just not overwhelmed.
You can't lie
to
your brain like, oh, this guy's really, really good. Like, no, right. He's not. No, he's not. Like, yeah, he can fight and anyone.
He's not that good and he should never beat me. Right? Like, you might think that sometimes,
right? You know, at first I kind of deterred me a little bit and I was like, dude, I don't want to freaking do this anymore. Like, if I'm not fighting these guys that I want to be in there with, like, why do I want to do this? But, you know, I kind of just found a different way to look at it. I'm like, this is just another opportunity to help grow different aspects of your mentality, of your physicality. And like, now you're in this other position. Can you still push it at that level? You know, it's a different thing, but it's just as difficult in a different aspect. And once I kind of made that switch in my head, it made my outlook on it a little different. It is still very hard for me to do, but there are still high level guys. And, you know, the guy I'm fighting for the world title, which they haven't announced it yet, so I can't say, but you know, there still are guys out there like that, but most of the time, especially in like this kickboxing realm, that it's a different level of competition, and I am on the higher end of things, so it can be tough to you know, before it's like everybody you fight is better than you, so it's easy to just anybody you fight is gonna push you to that level. Now it's like, well, now like top 10 maybe, but other than that, no.
So do you still have a list of people that you want to fight? Dream list of matches you would love to? I
don't really think I have a dream list anymore. I just want to fight the best that I can, whoever that may be. I've always just been someone who I only want to get in there with people that I like to watch fight, you know, because I want to be entertained just as much as you do. Like, I don't want to get in there and fight somebody that's boring, even though, yeah, in some ways it's a different aspect, and I have to, it's like a puzzle you have to solve. I'd rather get in there with someone who's an exciting fighter as well, because I know no matter what, it's going to be exciting for the people, because I know this is entertainment. I want to be entertained when I watch fights. Yeah. So I don't want to put on boring matches, and it takes two people to have an exciting fight. You know, no matter how exciting you want to be, if someone just knows how to smother you and do these things to win a fight that way, you can't make it exciting unless they're willing to make it exciting too. Or it's very difficult, I should say. And, you know, particularly at this stage, like, I don't want to fight boring people. Like, I want to fight great people and exciting people. They don't have to be the best in the world, but as long as they're exciting, like, that's who I want to fight. Right. You know, so that list can be pretty expensive, but no, I don't have a list.
What are you going to take from fighting into your everyday life, even when you're not fighting anymore?
Well, I think the good thing about fighting is all the things you have to learn and apply can go throughout your life and into different aspects of business and into other sports and into learning new things. And, you know, there's a good book, or I don't even know what book it is, but they kind of talk about, like, if you know how to be great in one thing, you know the tools to be great in anything. It's just learning how to apply those things. There's a formula to it. There's different ways to do it, but it's just train all day, every day, kill yourself, push yourself as hard as possible, never give up. Whatever you do, and you'll make it. somewhere, you know, more than you would make it, more than most people will, if you just keep that mentality in anything that you do, whether it's a relationship or a business or a sport. If you're constantly having that good is never good enough mentality, and even good things can always be better. I think you need to think that way about everything. If you want to be good at anything, whatever it is, freaking diet or a sport or a business, if you always are in the mindset of I can never be good enough, not to say you look down on yourself. I don't look down on myself. I just know that I can always be better. You know, that doesn't mean I'm bad. That just means I could be great. Even if you're great, even if there's nowhere else to go, just maintaining that greatness is almost impossible. So there's never an end point to anything, I don't think. And in that aspect of it, it's easy for me to stay motivated as long as there's something I want to do, because you can never be good enough.
You said something early in the podcast about people wanting to fast forward to the end.
Yeah.
You know, and I see that happen often. People, whenever I talk about my brother, I tell people that he died from wanting to be great. Like, that's, in my opinion, that's what he died of. Like, he didn't die from alcohol or drugs necessarily. He wanted to be great, but he couldn't get his shit together to be good. And he had, he was, in his defense, he was bipolar and addicted to drugs and stuff. But I see a lot of people, they're really striving. They want to be better so bad that they are kind of skipping forward to the end. They are kind of, and what I share with people all the time is like, hey man, why don't you just try to be good first, and then you'll just end up being great. Yeah. There's a lot of people that are great that don't get the recognition. What your dad did for you is fucking great. I mean, what's better than that? Like, he gave you your life, my dad's great. Maybe the world doesn't know about him because he's 5'4" or whatever, right? And he's not a super athlete or anything like that. And so that's what I kind of see from a lot of people. They're trying to do these like real big things, and it's like, well, why don't we just try to figure out a way to get one foot in front of the other, maybe, rather than trying to be like Jesse Burdick or trying to be like some certain strength coach that's out there. Maybe you're just a personal trainer for a little bit. Yeah. And maybe you do that every day. Yeah. Until you figure shit out.
Yeah. I think that's something I try to express to people, because it's very easy to look at anyone in the spotlight or anyone that's gotten to a high level and think that they just got there and it was easy and they didn't have to go through things that you might be going through, and they did just skip to the end because somebody handed it to them on a platter. And so that's something that's motivated me to always be very vocal about the things I've had to go through and overcome, and my struggles and things, because most people don't ever get to see that. It's very rare that gets highlighted. It's like you got to realize what you're viewing is like 1% of this person's journey. That's all you're seeing is the end result. You didn't see anything they had to give up and overcome, and all the failures they had along the way, all the times they went bankrupt, all the injuries, all the times they failed, more times than you could count. You don't see that. You see, oh, they made it. So, I can do it too. I just, I think anybody can do anything, but the avenue to get there is always going to be different.
People think it's an overnight success that took 15 years.
Yeah.
Right?
I think, I don't know if it was Eddie that said this, but somebody said it. He said, everybody has to pay their dues, but you don't get to decide when and where those dues have to be paid. When and where and how, because everyone has to pay them in some aspects. Yours are going to be different than mine. Right. But you have to pay them, and you don't get to decide, oh, all I have to do is overcome this one bad day. Maybe every day is going to be bad that you have to overcome, but you can still make it. Right. But you have to be willing to pay those dues. And I think most people don't. It's easy to say that. I know it's going to be a struggle. You don't know what those struggles are going to be. Right. You don't know if you're going to have to live on the street for 2 years, and work out and live in a tent. Nobody knows what that's going to be. So as long as you make the decision that no matter what happens, you're not going to quit or give up, you'll probably make it.
Fucking awesome, man. Anything else, Burdick?
I don't know if I can follow that. Pretty good.
Thanks. I wrote just that well read. Yes. As we wrap things up, just talk a little bit about how you've been training this guy over the last couple of years.
Well, I got introduced to Kevin right after his knee surgery. So it was basically just helping him find a path to get back to the ring. And just helping him, you can't maybe tell from the podcast, but he's got, this really, really sexy kind of hunchback posture from kind of protecting his neck a little bit. But, just trying to make him taller, just trying to make him realize, some of the positions that he's in maybe aren't,
fighting the same stance for however long.
Forever, exactly.
Similar striking, similar moves for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, you're just treating him kind of like a throwing athlete, like any pitcher. Got to protect the shoulders, got to make sure that his hips can move and that they're bulletproof, and that he can kind of move around and be able to attack the way that he kind of wants to attack. It's when you look at combat sports, it's not just forward. There's forward, back, lateral, and then there's just a lot of spinning with any sort of with the kicks that any sort of high kick, low kick, the torque that you put on the hips and everything is, it's very demanding on the rest of your body. And if you're, one day off your mobility, one day off of, your hydration or something along those lines, maybe a joint just isn't going to put up with that anymore. And, with Kevin, I know that he, the mental aspect and, kind of the skill aspect was always there. For me, it was really easy. It's just, making sure that he's healthy. And it's always going to be a battle with people like Kevin. We were talking on the way up where, they don't want to just take any fight, but they want to stay busy. And that's where it's like, you don't necessarily always get a big training camp kind of rolling into things. It's like, you have a fight coming up, but you can't tell anybody, but there might be a one before that, but you're not sure. And the other one might happen too. So it's kind of like this constantly bobbing up and down in the water. Yeah. And it's just about making sure you can kind of stay healthy, that those little aches and pains can be dealt with in between kind of the fights. And then it's just about making sure that he's fast more than anything else. And he can kind of turn things around. And I mean, usually when we're further out, we'll lift a little bit heavier. And only a couple times throughout the week. And then as we get closer, it'll be a couple more times, but it'll be a lot about speed and just keeping him, feeling like he's bouncy, like he's fast, and like
recovery
he's
is probably a huge part since you got so many other things to train, right?
Yeah, and he does a really good job of that too, of on his own. And rolling into this last fight, I was seeing him in the morning, and then I would make sure I had to yell at him, and then also have Kieran yell at him to come and see me before he left in the evenings. Kind of just, roll him out a little bit and just kind of, because he just kept he was just tightening up, further and further. And, for whatever reason it was during that camp that was going on, I think that was where your leg was broken or something. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, my fractured knee.
Yeah, your fractured knee. So there's a lot of issues with stuff. Yeah. So his knee was hurt, so he was doing so much more, kind of upper body stuff. He just kept tightening up and getting really, really wound up. So just trying to open that up for him. So I mean, it's just going to dictate. We're not going to do anything really spectacular or fun. Yeah. But it's just about making sure that he can go and perform in the ring. What he does with me is, really insignificant. It's just basically just making sure that he can go and, go kick the shit out of somebody.
There's so many people that they just tighten up on everything they do and they try to do 100% and they're always just working out. And something I heard Paul Check mention recently, I've heard people in the past mention it, just that you have another attitude about working out, that you also kind of work in and you work inward on yourself, and you take time to take care of yourself. It's not just working out is like half of it. Yeah. And getting sleep and hydration, even just mobility stuff, like some of that stuff has to be a big part of the recipe. Otherwise, fucking the wheels are going to fall off.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that's been instrumental for me. I mean, Jesse was literally I'd say one of the main reasons I was even able to come back from that knee surgery.
Good job, Burdick.
Thank you.
Good job, Burdick. Because I fought 9 months and 1 week after my ACL replacement, which is just like Wolverine status. But something, he really instilled in me was that, being able to keep moving, make sure everything's working correctly the way it needs to. And I think that's what's allowed me to continually push it at such a high level at such a late age in the game. And I
42.
45. So
You're going to get kicked. You got to watch out, brother.
I really do feel better than I ever have physically. You know, things.
That's awesome.
Things definitely hurt,
That's huge.
I feel better now than I did 10 years ago in that aspect of it. I feel functionally better, physically stronger, and I'm a lot more aware of when things are hurting, how to make the adjustments needed and still be able to do the work and not just mindlessly go through the motions where I would be causing unnecessary injuries and things like that. So that's something I've really learned about in the last, 5-6 years is how important those things are. And Jesse, you might say it's a small aspect of it, but that's that foundation, that core, it's the most important aspect of it. So even if it might be a small piece of it, it's one of the most important pieces of it. It's like one of the main legs of the base.
Well, it gives you a second to, even just the recovery stuff, foam rolling and stuff, it gives you a second to slow down. And you can sit there and just think about stuff, or even just not think.
Yeah.
And something that Kevin's really good at,
like chill.
Yeah, something that Kevin's really good at is communicating with everybody about what's going on. I mean, he's really in touch with who he is and how he feels and how he's moving. That too. But it's also, when he comes, he's like, hey, how you feeling? Like, I'm okay. What do you have going on for the rest of the day? I have X, Y, and Z. How about tomorrow? I got these things. Like, okay, cool. Then we'll attack things, from this manner. So you'll be able to go ahead and do everything that you need to do. I'm like, okay, cool. Then when I go and talk to Kieran, I was like, hey, how's Kevin? He's like, oh, he's, just banged up, this. Like, okay, cool. We'll dial this back and try and, make things go. And then I talked to Kevin about it. He's like, oh yeah, cool. Great. That sounds awesome. And, communication, especially when you have, you're dealing with 4 or 5 people who are helping you out, coaching you, you got to be able to, those people need to be able to talk with each other. And then you need to be able to talk, intelligently with those people to really make things kind of, fire on all cylinders. So
who's more handsome of a coach, Jesse or Kieran?
Well,
it's kind of tough.
What I think or what I was told to say?
I mean, are you into the larger head guys?
I plead the fifth on this one. So I don't want to
both
get hit.
Equal. It's a tie.
Because, it's a tie.
All right. Well, that's all the time we got. Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Make sure you follow Kevin Ross everywhere you can find him. I think he's on Instagram. What's your Instagram?
I'm all over the place. The Soul Assassin with a D-A.
Yeah. The Soul Assassin. And that is from him breaking people's souls. So hopefully he doesn't do that to me for saying that he's older than he really is. Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. See you guys later. Awesome, man. That was fun.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
That was super cool. Kicking people in the head for a living. How cool is that?